I don't like babies. No, that you cannot communicate what you want. It's a problem.
Yes.
So the moment he was able to communicate, oh mommy, I want this, mommy, I want to do this, then life became
a bit
now we
easier.
can,
Then
you
we
know.
can have
All
conversations.
this. Well, it's okay. Let's
Yeah.
So I just want to take you back a bit,
Okay.
because this has also affected me in a way. I feel like we're raising, well, some people are raising agric children, because some of them are not. Our kids are not as tough as we were when we were growing up. So when you mentioned that thing of when your son came down from the car and was disoriented, I've seen it happen with my kids as well. Like if we want to walk on the road or something, Tenny just seems like, I don't know which way you want me to stand. Like, and I'm like, it's common sense. Just stand here. You know.
I would say seemed, not seems.
It seemed.
Because that doesn't happen anymore.
And that's now.
And that's why I said I would say seemed.
Okay, seemed.
Yeah.
Okay, so what did you do? Like, because you also said that like you can't. You understand? So what actions did you take?
So I think that they were in a stage which was very important for them as well. It's essential for a child to stay in the fantasy world.
So that
Because
they're
it's a
still-
place they believe anything can happen. It's just that if you cross it, like one of my friends, my childhood friends, the house was a story building, and he took his bike. He just finished watching
and decided to stunt
Rambo
it.
or something. Then stunted from the front door, and he took off.
So
Wow.
you thought he could fly?
Yes.
Wow.
And fly he did.
Yes. Did he land?
He broke a few bones. So, but then you really want him to, so what?
Also, like the laws of reality.
Exactly, So, I mean, I realized that, your mind is way too much in that space. And that's why I introduced some of those kind of books. With things like John Grisham, which is much older than his age.
Yeah.
But I read it. What's the big deal? You want to see the sexual themes, you want to see whatever. As long as I've seen it, then I know what he's
It's
reading.
appropriate.
Exactly. There might even be some things that it might be, because appropriate depends on who is telling you is appropriate. When we were growing up, we saw parental guidance and stuff. The same Americans now are telling kids that they can be a man or a woman. So sometimes you need to, as a family and as a parent,
yourself,
determine what is
what's
appropriate
for yourself.
So that, then also, we also went ahead. I mean, going to one of the things that, the kind of chores as well, like, okay, washing cars, taking responsibility and all of that. But above all things, what I really, really, really did, which we discussed recently, was I wanted to get to a point where I trusted them. You get, I needed to trust them. So yeah, I'm the one that is engaging, she's engaging, of course, but I'm the one that is always like, okay, what are you doing now? What are you doing? Let's do timetable, let's do this. Because as a father, you're supposed to create structure in their lives, either for them to go with that structure or to go against it. That structure is very necessary. But I got to a point where I needed to trust, because sometimes we aid this agric behavior as well.
Yes.
Because we're the ones that say that
I mean,
they
we're the
can't
ones
do those
that raised
things.
them, so we are the ones that
Exactly, So, and for that, even with the screens, earlier they had phones. Then after a while, we took their phones off completely.
What age did you give them phones?
So interestingly, they had phones like very early, like 6.
While Nini was 6, Eita was 9.
9, they had phones.
They had phones.
But we now took all of that away completely, even till now. Right? And they only have access to screens on weekends. They can't do anything else on, and they do the weekend thing and all of that. But you see, beyond that, these guys are way smarter than you think they are. I know the kind of tricks I pulled on my dad on Nitel phones and all of that. I know in his grave now, if he probably hears, he'll be like, seriously? So I think it was essentially what to do is getting to the point where you trust them. So now we let them go out of the estate and go and buy stuff in a shop. They take a walk. What's the fear? They want to steal your children. They're going to get in front of the road. No, they're not that stupid. They're really not that. Even my son is so territorial, very, very, very much territorial. And until you find him in that space, you realize that this guy is a no-no. So I've seen him in that space several times. And I know that I don't have to be here to tell this boy what to do. He knows exactly what to do. His sister is just 3 years younger. and he deals with her in very interesting ways. Very interesting ways, because she can be a bit more outspoken and everything, and he's quiet. When he needs her to do stuff, he seems to know exactly how to get her. So even while it looks like it's chaotic, it's whatever, there's some sort of exactly like when I chase them out. I mean, there's certain times that they go for a run like 6 a.m. and all of that, and my daughter really doesn't want to, so we run together, and she can't catch up because she's breathing hard and all of that. But we hold her till. So if I leave both of them together, they quarrel. But he insists you run. You get, and because if daddy was here, he was going to ask you, so you run. And so that line of order, and because if you have 2 kids, for instance, you have to create a command system. Yeah. What you're building is some sort of military arrangement, right? It says a command system. There has to be a clear chain of command, and without having to say you go do that, you go do that. So I think it's pretty much that, and I think I wouldn't say we're there in terms of even the disorientation, because to be honest, sometimes Eta is out there. What I realized recently is that we need to hone in more on the things that he's interested in, right? Because if they're not interested in something, one of the easiest reactions for their age is to be completely nonchalant.
Yeah.
Aloof. As in, it can give you a straight face like this. Blank. No expression, nothing. Like that. But when he's interested, he's jumping, he's doing all kinds of things. He was trying to explain the diss between Drake and somebody to Bola, and he went to get this, get that.
Send you emails.
Exactly.
Send you playlists.
Exactly. Send you everything, find everything, give you presentations, and all of that. So I think it's when somebody is interested in something. Like, for example, we had our daughter do a presentation at the office to us and one of our partners, because we were working on something. Then she started talking about K-pop. And she started discussing K-pop with me from a business point of view. She started discussing the business of K-pop, the business of how the idols are found, how they are put into incubation. And she and I are the music people in the house. Itaya is also music, but me and we share playlists. They got interested in Afrobeat. Then started talking about K-pop.
Wow.
And I knew what K-pop was, but I really didn't. But she needed me to understand certain things. So she started showing me a band, showed me how the band was built, showed me how they monetized the band, showed me how they went this, and I'm like, hey. And I said, listen, let's sit down and discuss this thing. So she gave me a full-on, and this will go on to be a major solution to something we're working on.
Wow.
So I said, you know what? Make
present.
a presentation. I think she did like a 10, 15-page slide.
Wow.
Everything, sat down, and she brought, So you needed to see how we were being corrected. No, that's not that. You think she doesn't know it, but she does. She said, no, that's not that. Let me show you the video when they did that. This is what they did here. This is the category of these people. This is the sound. This is the light. This is this.
Something else.
Yes. So once you find that thing that they are very interested in, they school you on it. And the moment they know that you allow them to
express themselves,
because you're always trying to make them to do the things you think are important. You're not caring.
You're always bringing them to your own world.
You're not caring about their world.
To their world.
You get. So I think for me that has just been
Okay. This is really interesting. So both of them obviously have passed the age of puberty. How did you guys handle that, and then talking to them about sex, their bodies, what to expect, the changes that would happen, because I'm about to hit that. An approach I have, but I'm always open to learning more ways to, handle that. So how did you guys navigate that? Were there the mood swings? Has Eta started doing that teenage, so...
It's so interesting. Nini is right in the middle of it. Eta, yeah. So, speaking of how do we navigate it, just as with every cycle, because I've never done it before too.
My sister.
So it's a case of, okay, understanding what it is, what is what, or what is not. And sometimes I have conversations with him like, I say that you go and
do this one, no.
Especially when it comes to a time.
Yeah.
also learning to, then before they got to this stage where they separated their rooms.
Okay. At what age?
What age was that? They've had separate rooms now.
For like 3-4 years old.
Yeah.
So when he was like 11.
Yeah.
Yeah, when Ita was like 10.
10. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
10, yeah.
And I remember he actually insisted, and he felt as a boy he needed to have his own space. So we separated their rooms. So at the time I didn't really understand why, but let's separate their rooms. So of course it got to a point where, so he really doesn't do that with me.
Okay.
But just the territorial thing he's talking about,
yeah.
we started noticing it at some point with other people. So there are certain people that he has accepted as his inner circle. So if you're going to be coming into his space, he needs to know. And he needs to know for how long.
Wow.
So that he can prepare himself. And when the time is going,
you have to go.
He will have to let you know. Then also in terms of being corrected or there are certain people that can do certain things with him. And if you're not within that space, you're not allowed to, he's not going to
take you,
seriously. So I noticed that there's this person that has always lived with us since I had my daughter. She's been with us now for about 11 years. Nini is 11.
You said I didn't realize.
Yeah, and she came when I was pregnant with Nini, and she's always been with us since then. At some point, we had to realize that he knows she's not family, and there's a corner she's at, and
it puts her in
which started when he got to a point of, okay, so you're getting more self-aware. I also think times have changed.
Yes.
I think that certain things that we think happen at puberty happen a lot earlier
than when puberty.
Self-awareness, knowledge of certain things. So because of we live in the information age, they're exposed to internet information. They are much aware of a lot of things much earlier than
we were. Yeah.
And I think that the best thing any parent can do to themselves, not their children, that they can do for themselves is to create that environment where your kids can actually have conversations with you.
Yeah, very important.
Because I think way earlier than now, I remember one day we were all going out. This must be like 5 years ago. Yeah, 5 years ago-ish. Which means Nini was how old? 7? 6. And the conversation started in the car, and Nini is going, oh, I think I like girls. And Lisa says, no, you don't like girls, you like boys. Like, that whole, he knows how to deal with her. And he was defining what was to her, and he was trying to make a point of, it's not what's supposed, How do you have a conversation? I remember I called it, I said, oh, I call one day, and they say, this is what I'm
liking.
So some of these things that we think need to wait for a certain age appropriate time, they're already exposed to it. They already see it in their cartoons, which we don't watch. They see it in their books, which we don't read. They see it. They have conversations.
They learn it in school where we're not.
Where we're not. You'll be surprised at the things that also even happen at the playground. So, how much protection really can you give your kids?
So better to arm them with information than to
try
and
police them.
Because there's this whole shielding, policing.
Exactly.
I think you can't do it forever. At some point in time, they will be exposed to the real world.
Yes.
Now, my daughter, for example, recently just saw her period. I wasn't even in town. So she called me. Mommy, I mean, she'd been anticipating because I think her friends in school already, they've taught them in school, they've read about it, they've seen it in their cartoons. I mean, she has older cousins. So she sort of already has an idea. We've had the conversation. But there's also this thing about, once again, mommy is always lecturing. They just listen there out of respect sometimes. So I recently found out that. So I asked her, have you done XYZ? She said, oh, yeah. I'm like, oh, how did you do it? Oh, don't worry, I called Tenny.
That's a friend.
Who's her cousin?
Okay.
Her older cousin. So I'm there feeling, so now I'm already second fiddle, because these are the things that mothers will hold on to. Those times
I was one that hold your daughter
and walk you through into womanhood.
Yes, So that's what I mean by times have changed. And sometimes it's best also not to take yourself too seriously. What was just important for me at that time was to know, okay, what did Tenny tell you? Because I can't stop you from getting that information. It's now for me to either correct or validate what was going on. It's okay if it's on my hand, because there are children that don't have mother, and they must survive life. Yeah, so that's also another thing I'm seeing. So within this period, quite interestingly, I think it was easy because she had taught herself on what to expect. So it did not come like a thief in the night
for her.
Yeah, so was already knowledgeable. Also, in fact, you hear conversations with the brother as well, because when the school also teaches them, they teach both the boys and the girls together. Like, oh yeah, it's that time of the month, you're getting cranky, those type of conversations, then you have to correct. Oh, it's not always like that. Then I'm having to tell her about, because I don't have period pains, for example. So I had to explain, you might not experience this, or you might experience this. These are the things that we look out for. But it's not something that we sit down and we have school or school time, or it's part of
life.
The general daily
life. Conversation gets there, yes. If it doesn't get there, fine. And much earlier before now, we've been talking about relationships. We had been talking about crushes. We had been talking about how you are feeling about a certain boy, maybe within the estate, or sometimes the brother wants to tease her and brings up those conversations, and we try to make it as open as possible. Not just for them, also for their cousin. That's my sister's kid. Yeah. Okay. Also for their cousins. So we have that collective conversation. So they see us as this, Uncle Yinka is the best uncle. Cool uncle. Yeah, so we're able to have, anytime they come to the house, it's as if they've had piles of questions that
they've been waiting
wanted to ask, because this person can relate, So it's just creating that environment.
That can foster.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I think very much that. And especially with the cousins, so they find it easy to discuss some of those things with me, because I don't judge them. I don't tell you shouldn't have a boyfriend. Yeah. I don't tell you shouldn't have a girlfriend. I don't. In fact, I now go into, okay, so how is he working? Yeah, like how is he? Because I think a lot of times parents do not put themselves in the space of those kids. We know what we did. I don't know about everybody.
Yeah. No, this is everybody's been through.
Exactly.
But you expect that it's going to just be somehow magically different.
Exactly.
It's worse now.
Exactly.
That they have.
And they know a lot.
Yeah.
For instance, I think parents might have a difficult time discussing things like masturbation with their kids.
Yeah. It's actually uncomfortable.
What is right? What is wrong? And I keep saying that, just remember yourself. Because there might be a lot of those conversations outside, this is what...
And that's the painful thing.
Yeah.
If you don't teach them, someone will.
And there's so much teachers out there.
Yeah. So you want to guide.
Too many teachers out there. Yeah. They know this is what you should do. This is what... No, that's not what we should do. That's not what we have to do. Yeah. So, there's some of these conversations. I've had conversations with my son, and we had conversations about masturbation. I'm like, well... You might have read a lot of things and heard about so many things, but it's a good idea if you're having the actual sex, right? And before I said that, I thought to myself that should I say that, should I not say that? I said, okay, yeah, I say yeah, it's better if you're actually in the actual sex. And if you're not having the actual thing, you might get sold to doing that by yourself, and it might reduce your ability to engage. I said, see, men, we're supposed to be in the way we are, moved visually and everything, and you don't want to deaden that whole thing about you. And I'm like, and while it might also be a good idea, if said, I don't know if you're getting into it yet, but should you have been getting into it, said, you know that you cannot now be having sex now. You get, so you know you can't. I mean, it doesn't make sense.
So it's an open conversation.
Yeah,
and then he's able to give you his own honest feedback, as opposed to they're just looking at you.
And they don't exactly give you their honest view.
No,
it takes time.
No, but that's because
the door is open.
They see exactly. Because I was having a conversation with my son recently, and I asked him. I said, "Okay, so if something happens to you outside, like for example, you're at a party, you drank."
And you know you're not supposed to drink or something.
And you're not supposed to drive. What would you do? Would you get behind the wheel or would you call me?
You said you stole the car.
You stole the car, you went to a party, you got drunk. Are you going to
give him ideas?
No. Are you going to get behind the wheel and try and get home and hide the car so I won't know? Or are you going to call me knowing that I'm going to be really upset? And he's like, let me think about it. I'll call you. I was like, why would you call me? It's like, because first of all, I don't want to kill myself or anybody. Because I know that I will probably, I may make it, but there's a higher likelihood that I'm going to get into an accident, which is going to just compound the problem. Now, if I call you, I know that you'll be upset, but you're not going to yell at me because the first thing you're going to do is come and get me. You know, so just being able to understand that at the end of the day, yes, so this person, because, you know, there's so many people that get into trouble where their children get into a situation and they can't call their parents. So they start depending on friends or other people who are not necessarily going to be looking out for their best interests at that point.
But you know, something that stuck with me was, I remember my dad had this Yoruba sticker in his room that says, "You're not your humanity, worship."
What does that mean?
Remember whose
child you are. And I remember the amount of trouble and things I got into, and there was so much of I was about to take the next step, and then now I'm like, no, I'm not doing this. You know, so many things from secondary school to university. There were times that we were going to make the next step, and that next step would have been catastrophic, like disastrous. But then I think about it that. I'm not supposed to be. This is not for me. It's not for me. So each time my prayer or my hopes are like, okay, you need to download whatever it is into your brains and the minds of your children so much that that software it will trigger because that is the only time you're safe.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, because I think I'll start from a boy's point of view.
Yes.
When we were their age, we held each other. Boys held each other.
Yes.
With no,
come on. With no ulterior motive.
We're on the street and your hand will be on the neck.
And you're walking. Yeah.
Just see that today. It looks different.
The world has become too sensitive.
It looks different. We held hands as boys.
Yeah. And you didn't think about it.
Once you see that today, it looks different.
Your radars.
Yeah, it begins to, radar into, so, and I think it's the same thing that is happening to the women as well.
Yes.
But then the way I see it also is that we're unnecessarily exposed to some things.
Yeah.
Now you say, oh, does your child want to be gay or not? That's their choice, right? Those are some of the conversations that we have. Yeah. But then you find out also that these things are as fundamental as where you were born.
Okay.
Right? And
you were brought up.
Yeah, and I'm not one of those people that's going to say, oh, no, let them, no. There is how I see the world. Call it stern, call it whatever. How I see the world.
And this is how this is how you're down.
I recommend for you to see.
I
strongly recommend
you see the world the same way.
You get if you now choose not to see the world that way, we've established and installed layers of conscience in these guys.
So it's now the rest is up to you.
I mean, even us now growing up, for instance, for us, we haven't been in church in God knows how long. We don't do the whole Sunday church thing and whatever. And I mean, with the kids, there was a time in school, one of the teachers said, "Oh, I tell your parents to be taking you to church or something." When I go to the school, go and call the teacher. Some of the things you have been paid
to teach.
to discuss. She didn't understand it, but I didn't find it funny.
Yeah.
And I think principal was one that now got it.
So it is personal.
So you don't know,
Don't do
that. Teach them math, teach them whatever. I do not need your input.
Yeah.
On those particular things. So I think it reflects also to those other things. To the conversation of I like girls, you find out that sometimes, not even sometimes, half of the time or more, these things are just influences.
Yeah,
it just feels
influence
cool.
To say it as well.
Yeah.
Is a bandwagon,
to a large extent.
Exactly. But because her brother is more, when you meet a Tyre, he's probably going to be very much more quiet. The first question is probably going to ask you is going to be very introspective, so he is looking at her and like, you don't know what you're talking about. That is not what it is.
So let me tell you.
Let me first of all give
this
you
is
the
what
facts
this is what this is what this. So
now,
how do you know that that's
then
what
now
she
make an
wants?
informed decision.
Okay. So I think that's it.
Well, I think that because of exposure, once again, I mean, maybe this is also because I'm also very passionate about culture and language. I think that the more that we lose the essence of who we are, then it's easy for us to get influenced by, because this is all just Western culturing.
Yeah.
And there's no escaping it. Because we live in their world. That's the fact. But the best thing we can also find a way to do for ourselves, first as parents, is to find a way to also track back to the essence of what makes us who we are.
Yeah.
Then we can help transfer the same essence to these kids.
Yeah.
And then in the future, when they grow up, they can make their own informed decisions. Which boils down to earlier when he talked about, we're trying to get to a space where we can trust them. We can trust the decisions you're making when you are by yourself.
Yes.
We can trust, sometimes life throws you into situations. So for example, speaking of shielding your kids and all that, of course, there will always have to be somebody at home with them. We go out like this and then, who's with your kids? They don't need anybody to be with them anymore. But we didn't always get here.
It wasn't always like that.
We got thrown into it. Then you're thankful for those moments. We went to Kaduna at some point. His sister lives in Kaduna. She works in a bank. Her husband works, and they have 3 kids that would go to school and would come back home around 2. School bus would come and drop them. So the kids were already forced to adapt. Circumstantially, they had to be home by themselves. So before she leaves the house in the morning, she would have made, of course, the breakfast they take to school.
And
she
then
didn't
lunch.
have help. And lunch and dinner
because they were
because as a banker,
she closed
You know, sure you.
it is when the account has
That's when
balance
you can go home.
that you can go home, So, we got back and, our kids were still being shielded. Somebody has to be home. When it's a certain time, I'm already calling the lady with me. And she also has work. So, am I telling her not to also focus on her work? She's not a house help. So, one day, I think we went out to buy something. We were already far away from home. And which was also one of the reasons we got them phones at the time. So, they had iPhones. So, next thing we just saw FaceTime. Hey, Auntie is not home yet. We're just the only people at home, and it was 8-ish. Okay. Turn on your video. Just go and lock the door. Lock this, lock that. Don't worry, you're safe, you're this, you're that. We kept thinking, should we rush home? We've had moments like that we have to cancel everything you're doing, you have to get back home. But like, okay, let's try this. I remember I started entering taxi at age 9. My kids I can't put them in an Uber by themselves. So we are shielding them. From the office, there was a lawn tennis space just 2 blocks away from the office. When they started that lawn tennis thing, somebody will have to take them from
the office to
there. When they are done, somebody will go and get them. One day, Yinka was like, "No, my friend, get on the road. That is where you are going. If you like, let car hit you." So I realized that we know a lot of things, head knowledge. We learn by experience. We have to experience our environment, but we shield them from experiencing these things.
And then we expect them
Then
to
we expect
somehow
them to know,
magically
like you say,
become.
mothers will always say common sense. It's not common sense.
You have to instill the, like he said,
it's
software.
Common sense to you,
but to them,
it's still new.
They don't have that experience at all.
Yeah.
So it started by, okay, you guys will stay home by yourselves, both of you. Then it got to a point where then a new one started when Itayo got to secondary school and his timing changed. Nini is still in primary
school.
Itayo will come back later. Nini would have gotten home before him. So she had to learn to stay home by herself before her brother will come back. And like till now, these kids can stay home by themselves till 12 minutes from morning till they don't even. In fact, they prefer it when we're not home because then they have the space to themselves. But they've grown because of that experience. If we didn't get thrown into it, we would still be cuddling them, and even they will think they do not have the capacity for it.
Yeah, true.
We don't allow ourselves to test even their capacity for stuff out of our own fear of. It's not easy for somebody to die. So really, what are we afraid of? It's like how was it last term? You guys just woke up one morning and said, why are they cooking for you in the morning? That's tired. At 14, okay, you make your breakfast yourself. If you like, don't make it, you're not eating to school. And if you think back, that's how we grew up. Yeah. And don't do it. You're not hungry now. So we are here cuddling. No, they have nutrition. They need to be nutritious. I remember my mom used to tell me, hunger doesn't kill people. Experience it. It's like when we also introduced them to fasting. The first day they tried that thing, they nearly died. And he was like, don't worry, it doesn't kill. And for him, speaking of him being deliberate with certain things, it was more of teaching them self-control. Knowing that if you decide not to eat and your body tells you a different thing, you know the truth. Yeah, you can tell the difference. Irrespective of how you're feeling, it will help you with other things. You will learn. So they learned. After a while, they picked days of the week that they do their own fasting themselves. They look forward to it. While we got into it because of health, for them it was self-control. Then they look forward to, today I'm fasting. It became a cool thing for them. Same with house chores. I remember one day some kids from the estate came to the house and wanted to call them out to the playground, and I was like, oh no, we're doing dishes. What we're done? You do dishes? And then he went, you don't do dishes. Are you any problem?
You're trying to make us feel.
Like, oh, you mean you don't do dishes? Wow,
we do dishes here.
You just raise entitled kids who are going to become entitled adults.
Exactly, and because we shield them from this same thing with you see kids on the road now. You see kids on people selling stuff on the road.
This morning I saw 2 boys.
Yes.
Younger than my
How old are they and why are they walking?
He had crossed the express.
He carried his brother
and they were walking.
Yes. Like, why? And there was a first time that ever happened.
So you know that
and then necessity sometimes. Yeah. You're there thinking because you have it great just because you're a little more privileged than them.
I feel I have a bit of a different perspective to some of these things. And especially, I'd like to use Lagos as an example. There's this whole middle or entry-level middle class, then middle class situation where, for instance, say you live in an estate in Lagos and it's a cascade of the situation in the country where you live in an estate and the doors are locked and everything is this and all of that. People who live in places like that abroad are super rich people, are quite rich,
wealthy.
Very, very wealthy people. And you know how around here, it's very cheap to live wealthy.
Yeah.
If you get what I mean, very
Yeah.
cheap. How much is a driver? You can.
Nanny.
My neighbor had 4 nannies.
Sorry.
Yes,
You
she had
can.
4.
You can. It's relatively
Yes.
She had
cheap.
to set up twins.
How much is?
Okay.
Yeah,
It's
there's
Even
so
at that.
even
But
at that,
4 is a lot.
it's easy to leave that. Easily you can. In fact, if you want to up it up a bit, you can have like 3 more poles.
You can do.
How
can,
much
you
is
can,
it?
You can
Yeah.
relatively.
How
you
much
can-
is
it's
it? Do you
really-
understand?
Yeah.
And easily you can move rich.
As opposed to when.
Do you understand?
When
Now,
you
if you
grab
look at the effect of that, it's the same effect that's coming down to how we're training our kids.
Children.
Right.
So you see kids who are being thrown around, carried around with the driver to this place, to the next place. Everything is not safe. The street in front of the
The house
estate
is
is not
not even
safe.
safe.
Everything
Paranoid.
is, they're paranoid and all of that. And I was speaking to a friend of mine who had an older friend who had kids in America, and he was making me understand that the kids in America are even better
equipped
trained
to deal with.
than ours.
Yes, because somehow, these ones will still.
Exactly.
Because how are you?
They
You
walk
can't.
to school.
They walk to school. They get on
Yeah.
public
do community
transportation.
things, they
it all-
get on the
Exactly.
bus.
But it's a function of the fact that perhaps the country and
The
the
system that they have.
itself makes it seem safer.
Yeah.
I mean, you could start getting your license at about 16 years old and younger and all of that, start driving and all of those things.
But it does not necessarily mean it's safe.
Exactly, But here, you're finding a situation where I think we need a lot of, we need boot camps. We need to break our kids. We need to break them into
So that
life.
they will be able to.
Yeah, break them into handling fire.
Process.
Break them. Let me give you a simple example, which can be a bit scary for some people. How do your kids hold a knife?
No, that's not your kids.
Like a real knife, not a bread knife.
They
An
hold it
actual
properly.
knife. Long and short of it is that there's so many life lessons that we need
That
to
we need to
consciously teach.
Teach them, yes.
Otherwise, they are the receiving end.
Yes.
And by the time they go out there, the gap will be very
Yeah.
wide.
We're breeding weaker kids.
Yeah, that was
They will not be able to survive
Yeah.
in the real world.
This has been
Okay,
very,
a
very
lot to unpack. There's been a lot of information. There's been a lot shared, and we really appreciate you guys for coming on. It was
This is
Thank
30
you for
minutes show.
having
it
us.
was great. What did you say?
Was this a 30 minutes show?
No, it was definitely not a 30-minute show. This is way over 30 minutes. But I mean, it was very informative.
Yeah, and I really appreciate
and we
it.
really appreciate you guys coming to share.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you for having us.
Thank you very much for joining us on this episode. If you have any questions, comments for us or even the OBBs, please feel free to send it in. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And please leave a comment for any question that you may have. Or, what else? What are your thoughts? What do you think? Let's know.
Let's know.
So now we go off to the game section where I'm going to whoop you. And we'll see you again next week.
Bye. Hi,
Hello.
and yet another game challenge. So we're doing charades, and you can't say anything. You're just going to use your body gesticulation to let me guess what you're trying to say. And best number or best guesses wins.
Top guesses, yes.
Top guesses
Yeah,
wins.
yeah.
Okay.
What
All
she
right.
said.
So let's go. 3, 2, 1.
I think you should look at it before you tap it,
Okay.
so you know what you're tapping. Okay.
Notepad, notebook, writing, typewriter, laptop,
It's supposed to go the other way.
mouse, pocket, rowing a boat, boat, rowing, sun, rocket, spaceship, moon, knock, table, knockout, wood, woodpecker, knocking on wood, fishing.
Time's up.
Okay, all right.
So it's -1. Whatever the score,
-1. Okay, all right. Okay. I didn't know.
6.
6 to 5.
If you say I'm terrible,
Who, me?
I will use slippers.
Couldn't be. Two words. Hot. Hot tail. Hot mouse. Hot water. Swim. Bikini.
Correct.
Skiing. Haircut. Barbing. Barber. You cut my hair. Samson. Give me a haircut. Give a haircut. Give me a haircut. Give you a haircut. Take a haircut. Fly. Plane. Airplane.
Airports. As in the how
Airport.
plane airports like.
Plane first before the airport.
I did
Before the
plane now.
building. Building. Plane.
You
She
be
did
alright.
plane building.
Whatever. What's happening? If did you just have terrible?
No.
Did you?
No.
So
We've come to the end of yet another game of charades, and as usual,
what?
I won. I had 5.
How did you win? I guess the
I
right.
described them. It's not the person who describes it.
No.
Yes, that's the whole point of charades.
Mm.
Are you kidding me right now? It is the person who.
Robert, it's okay. We've come to the end of another episode. Please do not forget to like, subscribe, and share. Leave your comments in the comment section, and then we'll see you yet again on another episode of
Love and everything in between.
Are you
Who
Googling?
actually wins in charades?
Okay.
Children not involved in that. In 2024. Okay. Even adults are involved, are very involved in their devices. But it's okay. Let's